So now that you have your set, you're completely built, you need to put it in a theater. There is a SketchUp model that I've provided for you on Blackboard named Theater, and I would like you to go ahead and open it and copy it and then paste it into this theater. You want to make sure that it's all one component because it could very well be a couple of different things. So go ahead and make sure you make it a component, which this was two different components. The main drape was a different component than the whole theater. And then I want you to grab it by this little corner right here. And that little corner right there is going to match up. Oops, I just copied it. I'll delete that later. It's going to match up to this little corner down here. Once you have that set, if you accidentally copied your theater, you can delete your copy. Once you have that set, you know that the front edge of your theater, of your set, is on the front edge of your stage. And you know the ground of your theater is sitting on your stage. Once you do that, you may want to, you notice that there's a gap here and this wall buries into the wall here. So you're going to go ahead and grab the edge here and move it toward that wall. Now let's go check over here, and that one is good, and that one's good, and that is where that should be. Now if you notice, you can see a little bit of a wall here, and other than that our masking looks pretty good, but the reason that is because it's just moving into it a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to cheat a little bit, because normally you would need to put this on a new batten, but we don't have battens listed here, so I'm just going to tilt it until the wall is no longer visible. And yes, I know that that's not really how things hang in theater, but in a SketchUp model we're just using it to represent something that really exists. So I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm actually going to save this as Ground Plan 4, just in case I need to record this video again. And now that we're in a theater, we get to do the fun part, which is going to be, we can go ahead and decorate. Now one of the things I want to do is I'm going to click into this theater again and keep double clicking until I get down to the part where I can fill in this hole. And I'm going to make the stage have a floor here. I'm also going to erase this line so that that surface is nice and smooth. And I am going to add another line. You know what, I'll just leave it all one surface, and I'll paint it all at the same time. I'm going to click out of the component, come all the way out here, and now I'm out of the component. And so now I can use my materials panel. Go to Window, Materials, and what you have in here is a menu. And now there are a couple things I want you to pay attention to on this. You have an eyedropper, so you can grab a color that already exists in your model. You have a drop-down menu where you can select either colors and just paint things solid, flat colors by clicking on them, or you can grab textures like fencing, ground cover. You can make this come on, ground cover. You can make this a gravel wallpaper. You can also change attributes of that gravel wallpaper by clicking on Create a Material, and you'll use this as a base. You can choose a different color for it to be based on. So you're basically applying a filter to it. You can change the size of it to be larger or smaller, and you can change the opacity of it. So what all this means is that I just created a new texture right here based on that texture, and I can use it on my set now. So this can be some pretty funky stuff. It can also be some pretty interesting things. And you can make these patterns bigger or smaller by creating a new pattern. If you hit the home button, this is going to show you all of the colors and patterns that are currently in your model. And these are saved and associated with your model. So if you had one in your hand a minute ago and you used it and then you changed your mind and you hit Control Z but you want it back, then you can get it back. Let's go to wood, and I'm actually going to make this a wood floor because that just seems so much more logical. In order to paint something that's inside of a component, you're going to have to enter the component and paint that surface. Make sure you only have that surface selected, or you will paint all the surfaces you have selected. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that. So now my floor matches all the way around. I can also make my staircase match. If you click on a component, the entire component will be painted. That's relatively obvious, but for instance, if I want to do some more detailed painting on this, like let's say I want these components to not be that wood color, I could enter the component in order to paint them differently. I'd also like to bring your attention to this. I gave these to you at the beginning of class, and they have these references. So whenever I say A for arc tool, P for push-pull tool, R for rectangle, you can see that all of these shortcuts are here. And of course, rotate is Q, which I never remember. I also don't tend to remember offset, but you can see that follow me doesn't have a shortcut. If it had one, I would know it and I would use it. And some of the things don't have shortcuts to them, so we don't use them. But if you need them and you forget them, you can always print this out and keep this at your computer. It also gives you a shortcut for all of the symbols and what they mean. It also has these really neat instructions over here. So on the bottom of SketchUp, when you're working, it's going to tell you information. It's going to tell select object, shift to extend select, drag mouse to select multiple. This will give you hints the entire time that you're working in SketchUp. But also this sheet will give you some very interesting things that you can do. For example, the move tool has a whole lot of things we can do to it, and it explains that to you here, or reminds you. For instance, you can move a copy, hold down and lock a current interface direction with shift, auto fold. You're gonna like that one when I show you what to do with it. You can use your arrows to move in the direction if you're using the move tool. You can specify a distance that you move by entering a number. You can do an external array by saying, and that's where you say X and then a number, and an internal array, which is divide in the number. That's where you multiply and divide while copying. This shows you that when you're offsetting, you can double click for a quick offset, the same as your other one, etc. These are things that we've been using, and this will remind you of those. But another thing it does is the bucket tool, which is the materials panel tool, that it gives you some more interesting options. If you hold Control while working, it will paint all matching adjacent faces. So what that means is if I'm going to go ahead and exit this and enter this component, because this component has a lot of faces to it. So if I wanted this all to be a marble color, stone. So I want this all to be a stone color. It needs to go with this. I don't want to have to click each and every surface on this fireplace. That would get a little ridiculous. So if I hold the Control key, I'll paint all matching adjacent faces. Pretty easy, right? Also, if I hold the Shift key, I'll paint all the matching faces in the model. So check this out. I didn't actually have the stone selected. That's why that wasn't working. So evidently when you're in there we go. So when you're in a component, it didn't work when I was in the component. I think I had to double click. Yeah, it did it only to what component I was in. So if I double clicked on the component with the shift, it colored all the components in the file, but when I was only selecting one component at a time, it only did that one component at a time. But it did it in that whole component. Control Shift, paint all matching faces on the same object. And Alt is to hold, you can hold down Alt to sample a material. So let's say I paint, again I have to grab my texture. I paint this, 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 and I paint everything but those two columns in the front. Right? Oop, okay, I'm not going to bother to try and get that corner. So I paint everything except those two panels in front and the mantles, and I want to paint those this other color. I'm going to go ahead and hold Control and Shift at the same time. Control and Shift, and it will paint all of those colors that are the same. All that thing that's already the same color. That comes in handy when I'm like, hey, no, actually, I want to take all of that and I want to paint them this color. Hey, no, you know what? I actually want all of that to look like this now. I actually want all of that to look like this now, and you can try it. But still maintaining the same type of, hey, I want all of this one layer to look like this, or to look like one color. So if I want all of those surfaces to look like this material, no matter what I change that material to, they'll all change together. And then, of course, last but not least, the Alt will allow you to sample that color. So you can sample and drop. So that is how you can paint things. You can only paint an entire surface. So if you want some section of a surface to be a different color, you might have to go in and change the geometry a little bit and add a line. The other thing we want to talk about is the Google Warehouse. So right up here you have two symbols that are Get Model and Share Model. If you cannot see this, if all you have is this, go to View Toolbars, and you have the large toolbar. You can either view Getting Started, or you can view Google. This is the Google one. This you can see is the exact same thing. It's just on a different toolbar. And what you want to do is click Get Models. And this will go and say, hey, Internet, what up? And you'll say, oh, hi, Internet. I was wondering if I could have some models that other people have already created. And the Internet is going to say, sure. What kind of things might you be looking for? And you're going to tell it, I want a chair. And it's going to give you a wide selection of chairs that could be very humorous. And I'm going to say, I want this fancy chair. And all you have to do is say download model directly in your SketchUp model. Yep. And place it. Now this is a relatively common occurrence. There's an extra thing in here. Do you see that crazy thing over there? That's gonna come in with it. Sometimes there are extra things, and I just triple click on it and delete. And actually I kind of want that guy, but I don't want them together. I want them as two separate objects. So I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to explode it, and I'm going to move these two things separately, and I'm going to put him somewhere, and I'm going to put my chair over there, and of course with my move tool I'm going to move this out of the way, move this out of the way. With my move tool I can go ahead and rotate however I like, but make sure you're setting his leg on the floor, that kind of thing. I want you guys to go ahead and decorate this room however you want. Color the walls however you want, write on the walls if you want to, do whatever you like, whatever you want. I want you to have fun with it and create as fun a room as you want, furnish it however you like. You can furnish it and add anything you want from the Google Warehouse. Theoretically, every other project up until now has been turned in separately, and I'm only going to be grading the molding and your creativity on doing a very fun model. So have as much fun with it as you like. You can either make it very artistic and make a lot of sense. You can put a bougainvillea in there. Keep an eye on how big these things are. If you download it into your model, like you can download entire trees that are very, very high resolution. This is not one of them actually, but if you want to put this behind, let's say you want to scale this down and put it behind the French doors so that it looks like there's stuff back there. You're absolutely welcome to do that. I will say that sometimes it makes it easier to see and navigate if you hide some things, like the entire theater. I'm not gonna lie, that thing gets in the way. So I will recommend that if you're doing anything behind the set like that, that you hide the theater, and remember to get it back. You just go to View, Hidden Geometry, Unhide. There you go. And now there's a little tree back there. Okay? And so enjoy your decorating.